Next up is Steven, and he has a really good question because pensions, of course, have declined over the last 40 to 50 years, but there are still a lot of government employees that have pensions and some private sector employees too. And he asked, can I treat my government pension as a bond in my retirement portfolio and be more aggressive with other retirement vehicles? The pension will replace 100% of the income needed in retirement. So how should he think about his pension there?
Yeah, this is really interesting. And I don't love the way that the question gets worded because we get asked this all the time. Can I consider my pension a bond? Well, it's not exactly right. Like when you think about portfolio construction, that's not exactly a one-for-one. So I think you have to remove that thinking. But can I, or might it be okay, or is it permissible for me to have a slightly higher risk tolerance, have a slightly more aggressive portfolio because I have a pension in the background? I think that's probably a more appropriate way to approach this, especially if you have a pension that's backed by the government, by the full faith and credit of the government. It's a little bit different than a pension that's backed by a corporation that could maybe not be as well funded or not be as secure. So, Stephen, I think I wouldn't say, okay, if I need a 60-40, but the fixed income is going to be that, I wouldn't construct my portfolio that way. What I would think about is, okay, I've got my liquid portfolio, the dollars that I'm building and saving today. If I were normally going to be a 60-40, perhaps it's okay for me to be a 70-30 at this stage in life because I know I had this pension in the background. I wouldn't think about it as a one-for-one portfolio replacement. I'd think about it, what sort of risk capacity can my situation allow because I have this guaranteed income source in the background. Agree, disagree, want to fight?
I love that you reframe that because it does allow you to focus more on the long-term legacy of the money. That's where I've run into situations exactly like this where somebody has a pension that covers 100% of their living expenses and they're living their best life. And it's just one of those things where they say, what do I do with this now? And that's something we talk about as financial planners. But one of the things that it does typically allow for, if you can think legacy or go beyond your life, is that you typically can then go a little more aggressive because you've got the basics covered. Now, before I give you the all clear, go load it up and start taking on additional risk, I do want to caution you because when I hear a pension can cover 100% of your expenses, that means it's probably either you're living on a very modest life or you have a very large pension. And if you have a very large pension, there is one more step of homework you need to do. Go to the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation website. I think it's pbgc.gov because it's essentially just like you have FDIC insurance, you have the government has set up a pool for pension funds to have insurance essentially for coverages just in case your pension is not fully funded or there's some issues with solvency or in liquidity for the company that's making this promise or the government that's making this promise. And there's a cap on how much they'll guarantee. So if you have a high pension, there's a chance that you might not get all of it. So I would say if you have a very large pension, you go to the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation and you realize your pension is substantially over their guaranteed pension, maybe take that into account on the aggressive meter on how far you're going to go because I wouldn't assume that money is always safe. Very likely it will work out and it'll be great, but that's another risk that you do need to be very aware of because did he say if he was government or private? Because
he said it was a government pension.
Okay, that makes it a lot safer. It's still something, an exercise I would do, but I just know for those who are watching this highlight when it comes out who maybe work for a private corporation that has pensions as well, think about Delta. I mean, we worked with
Huge
a lot
impact.
of Delta pilots, and there was a season where a lot of these folks were getting six-figure pensions. But then Delta, in a very sly way, kind of shed that responsibility as a strategic move, and it changed a lot of people's futures. So be very aware of that.
And the only other thing I would throw out there is that we know that personal finance is like 80% behavioral. So what you don't want to do is put yourself in a really aggressive portfolio because you think you can because you have the pension, and then all of a sudden we see fourth quarter of 2018, or we see COVID, or we see the entire calendar year of 2022, and because you have a very aggressive portfolio, it leads you down the path of making a very poor decision, like going to cash or like selling at the world's worst time. Have a portfolio that matches not only your risk capacity, how much can I handle, or how much should I handle because of that pension, but also your risk tolerance. How much can I emotionally handle without making a bad decision? Because a really well constructed portfolio will satisfy both of those two pieces.